So can you make an effective horror film for $50,000? Well, this film has a go at it. This movie is Ghost Magnet, but it's actually known by a couple of other names, including Evil Things and Paranormal Investigations 6. Although don't be fooled, this isn't actually a sequel to any other previous movies. I think it's just lumped in with some of these other sort of previous found footage films. And that's what it is, it's a found footage film. Probably the cheapest kind of horror films that we see. The main criticism of this film, I'm going to say right off the bat, there's very little story to this movie. The story that we do have concerns a guy called Riley Venn, and he's a guy who has been running his whole life from the kind of the supernatural world, and he's really kind of at the end of this tether, and he's just trying to sort of escape these kind of constant spirits that are sort of haunting him basically, and the only way he can kind of get away from them is literally running away and sort of getting some distance behind before they sort of catch up. And it's really sort of driving him to the stretching insanity. And he's joined by these kind of two filmmakers that have kind of like, you know, heard about his plight and ultimately sort of want to sort of interview him and catch him. And then at the beginning of the movie, they're kind of skeptics. But as you would imagine, there are real things, if otherwise it wouldn't be a film. And the story really is just these two filmmakers, you know, going around, travelling with this Riley and really sort of documenting his life over the sort of course of a few days and experiencing some sort of paranormal phenomena along the way, and obviously thus learning that yes, there is paranormal stuff going on. And that's really it. That's really the story. There's not a lot else to it other than that. We get a little bit of kind of narrative about some of the spirits and stuff that may have been haunting him. Now, like I said, this is a low budget film, so do not be expecting an effects extravaganza because you're not going to get it in this movie. But I will say this, the money that they've used it very effectively, because there are some supernatural stuff that we do see on screen, and although it's not high budget, it's effective. I won't sort of go too much into what you actually see, because I don't want to spoil it, because it is obviously with these found footage films, it's kind of peppered around and not loads of it at any one point. But there are some quite, I wouldn't say necessarily scary scenes, but certainly chilling scenes. I also want to give props to the guy who plays Riley Venn. I thought he did actually quite a good job of really portraying this kind of man who's really just at the end of this tether and just kind of hanging on by a bare thread. Not so good are the two filmmakers, however, who I actually think at least one of them was one of the writers. And I don't know, their characters to me they seemed to me a bit more like caricatures and not really like real people. They just seemed, for filmmakers, documentary filmmakers, they didn't seem professional to me, and in regards to the characters that they were playing. And they were kind of quite rude to this character of Riley initially, and I thought, if you were trying to get this guy to cooperate, you wouldn't be saying stuff like that. So, you know, I don't think their characters were particularly realistic in some aspects. You know, they weren't like that the whole time, and they kind of got more sympathetic towards him as sort of the film progresses. But there was just some things that I wasn't quite buying. Now, like I said, there's not huge amounts of story here. Basically, the whole film is just going from place to place, trying to run away from these spirits, and we do sort of see, you know, some stuff happen here and there. We get some kind of visuals here and there of these sort of spooky stuff going on, and it's you know, there's a creepy atmosphere. There's a kind of sense of dread. So that's, you know, it's quite good. There are some inconsistencies in logic, however. For example, there's a couple of camera angles, for example, tyre shots when we're driving. I thought, well, who the hell's filming that? And there's a scene right at the beginning of the film where the filmmakers actually meet Riley for the very first time. However, there's someone filming Riley in the back of his car before he meets the filmmakers. And well, who the hell's that filming him? Stuff like that. So there are a couple of kind of like inconsistencies in the sort of the logic. And as a found footage film, this is one of those films that actually does use a kind of a music score as well, which I think maybe undercuts some of the sort of the realism of a found footage film. But overall, I think this is for the money that they've used, this is a really well made film, and it really does kind of draw you in. Even though there's not a lot of story here, the characters and the kind of situations that we sort of that they're getting, you want to find out what's happened. You want to know more. Unfortunately, the story doesn't give you a hell of a lot of sort of backstory about what's actually going on, so you'll probably be left with quite a few questions at the end of this movie. And it's more of just a kind of taste of this guy's life. It's over a few days. I'll give you a flavour about what this guy's been experiencing for his whole life. But I think it did a good job of really kind of getting you intrigued about, you know, this character of Riley Venn and kind of, you know, the things that he's been experiencing, and kind of, you know, makes you want to find out more about his life and kind of what he's been experiencing. So in that respect, I think it succeeded as a film. Now, there's been lots of these sort of low budget horror films, found footage films, and a lot high budget than this. But this one, I would say, is probably an above average effort, especially when you consider the very, very low budget that this one has got. And like I said, although it hasn't got a lot of effects, the ones that they do use are very effective. There's some quite sort of like, you know, sort of not jump scares exactly, but there's some kind of like jumpy bits in it. Overall, I actually quite enjoyed this movie. I would say it's an above average found footage film. I'm going to give this a 6.5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.